As a human being, you have guaranteed unalienable human rights. By virtue of existing and being what is known as a child of God, whatever religion you may or may not subscribe to, your rights come from the concept that you're a result of divine creation. This is supported by documents throughout history like the Magna Carta, UN Declaration of Human Rights, various constitutions, bills of rights, and charters of rights and freedoms of different countries. Unalienable, or unalienable rights, as in, no one can place a lien on your rights. They are yours to use freely.
The most fundamental thing that I've learned through all this is that they speak English, but it's a whole other language coming out of their mouth. And hence lawyers spending 8 years or whatever it takes to become a lawyer. They're trying to go and understand what the words and how this thing works.
If you try and speak to them in English or any other language, they won't be able to engage with you. You need to use their documents. And the reason why you need to use their documents is because you are within their corporation.
Well, they certainly don't teach you about what the law is about. A lot of times there seems to be a more of a societal or a community conditioning, where people that at 16 they go in there, get their driver's license, and it's a big deal for them, and yet they never ask themselves first, do I really need a driver's license in order to exercise rights? They get a social insurance number because they want to work legally in Canada, but yet they never study and understand the difference between, say, a contract for service and a contract for hire. So they're, to a large degree, they don't really teach much. It's almost more of a conditioning program that conditions you to believe certain falsehoods.
If you don't know your rights, you don't have any. And if you have to ask someone else what your rights are, you've just given them the power to tell you what your rights are. Boiling the frog, or tiptoe totalitarianism. Oh, but how to get rid of these unalienable human rights that stand in the way of a monopolistic, elitist oligarchy of complete and utter tyranny? If you're seeking to instill total control in a society, then the only way to achieve that is to dumb down an educated populace, making them forget about their rights, or even better, to not even care about them. Of course, you cannot take away all the rights of a person in one fell swoop, but must instead boil the frog. Huh? Try putting a frog in already boiling water. Watch it jump out instantly because it can't stand the heat. The only way to boil a frog is to place it in lukewarm water in your pot on the stove and slowly turn up the heat. The frog will stay comfortable, not noticing the gradual increase in temperature, and will stay into the pot even until it boils to death. This is the way that our freedoms and our rights are being suppressed and outlawed, one at a time, little by little. Tiptoe totalitarianism. If we don't notice it happening, it can't be happening. Some of the most sinister elements of this grand deception pass by so slowly and are so interwoven into the fabric of our system that some people just cannot accept that these elements might have actually been designed to enslave us.
Because we do not know the true meaning of the occult in relation to law and religion, it is very difficult for the typical person, typical educated person, to understand how everything intercorrelates.
I think it's less about plugging into the system than it is about having an easy existence where you don't have to think and take responsibility so much. You're just going along with the herd, and it's easier to do. But it then allows them to claim the right to, half your money, half your life, essentially.
The heart of the grand deception, keeping us mired in the world of money, is keeping from us all the fact that almost every country operates with the artificial and natural person merged together as one. That means humans are being given the rights of corporations, i.e., no human rights, and artificial corporate persons are being given the rights and privileges of natural persons, more and more so. And the ones aware of this are profiting from it in a multitude of ways. The main schemes of control involve and depend on us being ignorant of our rights, ignorant of the contracts we're presented, and ignorant of our consent to these contracts every time we sign any form presented to us. One of the key aspects of creating a document, especially a legal one, is that you need words. Words in common use have their usual everyday dictionary definition. However, in law, words are defined to have a very precise meaning. No words in law are ever used accidentally. They were always defined either by legal dictionary, court ruling, or most commonly, within the definition section of an act or statute. Would you find it interesting to know that words can be redefined within a law or contract to give a word in the body of that law or contract a completely different definition or meaning, and that if you don't read the fine print or check the definition, you may just be surrendering your rights or property to whomever has authored that law or contract? The film Bursting Bubbles of Government Deception illustrates how many of these deceptions are perpetuated by our ignorance. Breaking the government down into people who use words on pieces of paper to make other people do things, the film discusses some of the etymology and definitions of important words in the legal system.
Well, application and registration and submission are pretty much the three words that they use along with the word must to get all their authority over you. The word application means to beg. And it is assumed that he who begs knows exactly what he's begging for. They know what they're receiving. They have acknowledged the authority to grant, and if it doesn't exist, they're willing to create it by transference, and they're doing it entirely voluntarily. No one can ever be bound to beg. The word submission again implies a voluntary action because it means to agree to bend to another's will, and the agreement in itself must be voluntary, or to abandon to someone else's discretion, or to leave to someone else's discretion, and that's a form of abandonment, and again, that has to be a voluntary choice. And the other one, registration, historically, was the act of a ship's captain, who would sign over his ship and all chattel contents to the harbor master for safekeeping. And so when you do register property with the government, essentially what you're doing is signing it over to them.
For example, you register your car with your state or province, giving them the deed of true ownership, while keeping the equitable title for yourself. Remember, the true owner, the registrar, has the deed. The legal owner, the registrant, is owner only in title. You may now enjoy and use the car, but a registered vehicle is required by law to be insured in most states and provinces, and a registered vehicle is also only legally operable by a person holding a valid driver's license. So, if only registered vehicles require licenses and insurance, does that mean unregistered vehicles are not bound by the statutes and acts that govern these things? When pressed with these questions, desiring clarification, the government often responds with form letters, non-answers, and sometimes even hostility. One thing they do not respond with is a clear answer. Business as usual, some might say. But it seems they are not happy with just the registration of our material property. It appears they own our bodies as well.